Loki Season 2 has just finished its run on Disney Plus, another 6 episodes, and apparently that's it. The writers have come out saying that they planned all this as a 2-season show right from the get-go. 2 chapters of the same story, so to speak, done now. We'll see if that stays true, but hopefully yes, because it actually ends in a pretty good place. I will try not to spoil any significant things though. The story picks up right where the previous season ended, with Loki being back at the TVA, but people not recognizing him. It very quickly turns out that he's time slipping, which means he's being randomly transported back and forth through time between different points, in the past and in the future. He has to fix this, or his entire being will be unraveled across reality, and then he also has to deal with the fallout of killing He Who Remains and releasing infinite alternate timelines into unchecked existence. So let me say right away that many people online have praised this season and said it's the best thing that Marvel has done so far on the Disney Plus side of things. I agree partially. My take is that it is good and hits some really important notes. It is also really miles above any other Marvel Disney Plus show in terms of quality so far, except maybe WandaVision. But I also think it is extremely flawed in some regards, and is messy, chaotic, sometimes straight up incoherent in terms of writing. And I think your reception of it will depend largely on how much the good stuff will work for you. If you get on board with it, you can ignore the bad and really enjoy it. If not, I think there is room for criticism, and it would be quite deserved. I'll start with the bad stuff, actually, the specifics. I think it's generally too short of a show and too packed for its own good. The pacing feels very frantic, which works superbly in episode 1, which I'll get to later, but not so well in the others. It feels like the show is just sprinting to get through all this stuff, all these plot points, instead of having maybe twice as many episodes and letting itself breathe. And this leads to some storylines feeling undercooked and ultimately sort of meaningless, like the thing with Brad or the TVA agents who begin pruning realities again. It seems like they're an important side plot, and then by the end you're just thinking, well, that didn't really have an impact, did it? And in other cases, there are also characters which end up having very little to do in the show. Like Renslayer is used mainly as a plot device in one episode, and then later it is very apparent that the writers had no idea what they wanted to do with her. The character's actions and motivations are strange, and in the end she becomes a bit forgotten. But it's even worse for Casey and Hunter B-15, 2 characters from season 1, who this time have absolutely nothing to do except for staring in the distance with scared faces or delivering technobabble exposition. And this brings me to my next point, which is that the show has way too much made up science, magic, time travel, mechanical stuff in it. And what I mean is characters spend an enormous amount of time discussing nonsense things instead of it being shown to us. And worse still, much of that doesn't really make a lot of sense if you sort of examine it closely. It does feel at times that the show is trying to throw so much shit at you that you'll sort of surrender and stop noticing that it's actually fairly dumb and not really that compelling. I was watching the show with my girlfriend, who isn't such a big fan of Marvel as I am, and around episode 5 I asked her what are her thoughts and theories on what will happen in the finale. And she said, well, I don't have any, because I have no idea what's going on, what the show is even supposed to be about. I can't keep up. And that, I think, is not a good sign. And finally, and this is going to be a bit of a nitpick, but the show ends up exploring interesting ideas related to time travel, and does it in an okay way, but I couldn't help thinking, yes, this is good, but I've seen it done in another show, and done so much better. Like the bootstrap paradox with TVA Guidebook. It's alright, but I thought this type of paradox was done way better in the Doctor Who episode with Carey Mulligan and the Weeping Angels. And similarly, the time loop scenario of redoing the same thing over and over and over and changing little things. Again, Doctor Who has done it magnificently with Heaven Sent. But also, Marvel's own Unwanted Child, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., had an episode like that a few years back, and it was terrific. But of course, if you don't know these examples, in a vacuum, Loki might seem brilliant as well. Right, now, I've made this whole laundry list of problems which can make make it seem like the show is terrible, but as I said at the beginning, I was able to sort of ignore most of the problems and not care about them because there are elements in it which are spectacular. First of all, Hiddleston remains great in the lead role, and the character arc he explores with Loki is very good. It's a joy to have him on screen, but it's also a joy to see him interact with Owen Wilson and his Mobius. These two have really great chemistry, just like in season 1. Love that. Jonathan Majors is fantastic as the two variants of Kang he plays. It's really a shame that there's so much controversy around him now, and if he ends up going to jail and probably losing the job as a result, I mean, it's gonna be deserved, I guess, but it is gonna be one of the biggest what ifs of modern Hollywood, because the man is talented, and it would have been really cool to see him continue, to see him do more with this character in all its versions. Ke Huy Quan joins the cast in season 2 and quickly became my favorite character. His delivery of lines is just hilarious, and he is consistently the funniest character in his scenes. He's so entertaining and so endearing. I really want to see more of him in movies and shows in general. The production design is great, one of the most unique in the MCU, and even though this season relies quite heavily on CGI, to the point that I thought maybe they should have toned it down a bit. Maybe this scene could have been a conversation instead of this flashy CG scene. But it still looks and feels amazing. It's really well done, like a proper high-budget prestige TV show, which is a wonderful change from the god-awful Secret Invasion. The music by Natalie Holt is phenomenal. I loved the score for the first season, and this one is just as good, if not better. Especially the final episode is musically pretty much perfect. And last but definitely not least, I think a large part of the reason why I ended up liking Loki so much, and liking it more than not, is first and last impressions. See, the first and final episodes of this season are the clear best ones, and this really helps. First to set up expectations, and the finale to leave you feeling a certain way. The opener is in general probably my favorite episode of a Marvel show ever. It feels hopelessly frantic, quick-paced. The story just hits the ground running and never slows down. Really cool, anxious feel to it, and unlike the latter episodes, it feels like the quick pace actually serves the story instead of making us skip through it. And then the series finale is properly epic and at the same time poignant. It manages to wrap up all of the storylines in a mostly satisfying way, very bittersweet but also very fitting. And what they end up doing with Loki himself felt and looked fantastic. Like there are especially 2 shots in the final episodes which are just, damn, that looks really good. And they also drew inspiration from one of my favorite Loki storylines, even in the comic books, the stuff that happened during the Fear Itself event. Not to spoil anything for the people who haven't read it, but at the same time they did feel it does feel like they were heavily inspired by it, but the showmakers or the showrunners put their own unique spin on it, so it's not exactly the same. Great finale overall to cap off the series. So again, to sum it up, is it perfect or as brilliant as some fans make it out to be? No, I don't agree. I think it's clearly very flawed. It does some things poorly, but crucially, where it needs to shine, it shines. And at the end of the day, I think this outweighed the issues so much that I found it to be an overall good, satisfying and entertaining season.